Wait, I'm not invited. My mother went quiet on the phone. 6 days before Thanksgiving, I was sitting in a temporary field office with the hum of industrial equipment vibrating through the walls when I finally asked the question everyone seemed determined to avoid. Mom, what time should I come Thursday? Another pause. Then Linda exhaled. Tera, Jason is bringing Claire home to meet everyone. I know. She has a very serious career. Jason really wants this dinner to go well. I frowned. What does that have to do with me? Her voice dropped. He asked if you could sit this Thanksgiving out. For a second, I thought I had misheard her. Why? Mom hesitated, then finally said it. Because your blue-collar job would embarrass him. I stared through the office window at Cruz, moving across a multi-million-dollar industrial installation. Before I could answer, my father took the phone. Don't make this into drama, Tera. Your brother finally found someone who's going somewhere. He deserves one evening where everything looks respectable. That word hit harder than the exclusion. Respectable. As if I was. For years, I had shown up to family dinners straight from job sites wearing steel-toe boots and a work jacket, sometimes with dust on my sleeves or grease under my nails. Nobody had ever bothered asking much about what I actually did. Jason called me, the family electrician. Dad called my work manual labor. Mom liked to tell relatives. Tera was never interested in the corporate world. And apparently, all of that had now become embarrassing enough to erase me from Thanksgiving. I could have argued. Instead, I said quietly, I understand. Mom sounded relieved. Thank you for being mature about this. That hurt more than anything else she had said. I ended the call and set my phone beside a stack of project binders. A moment later, the office door opened. My operations director, Marcus, walked in carrying a thick folder. Sorry to interrupt, he said. I need the owner's signature before we release the next phase. He slid the documents across the desk. At the top was my company's name, Morgan Industrial Systems. I signed exactly where he pointed. Marcus glanced at my face. Everything okay? Family stuff. He nodded and left without pushing. I looked back out at the crews, working beneath the facility lights. My parents thought I had a job they needed to hide. My brother apparently thought my work clothes could ruin the image he was trying to create for his girlfriend. But now one question wouldn't leave my mind. What exactly had Jason been telling Claire about the sister he was so desperate to keep away from Thanksgiving? 2 days later, Jason called me. I almost let it ring out. Almost. When I answered, he skipped hello. You're not planning to show up Thursday, right? I leaned back in my office chair. Mom already told me I'm not invited. I just want to make sure. That bothered me more than it should have. You called to confirm. I understand I'm being excluded. Jason sighed. Tera, don't make it sound worse than it is. How should I make it sound? He went quiet for a second. Then he said, Claire works around executives all day. Engineers, developers, contractors, people with serious careers. I stared at the phone. And I've told her I'm the successful one in the family. There it was. Not concern about Claire. Not something Claire had said. Jason's pride. I asked, did Claire actually tell you she looks down on people who work trades? No. Did she say she'd be embarrassed sitting across from an electrician? No, but that's not the point. That seems exactly like the point. Jason lowered his voice. I'm trying to make a good impression. She's been working on this huge industrial project for months. Her company just awarded some automation contractor a major deal, and she talks about these people like they're geniuses. My hand stopped over the paperwork in front of me. What contractor? I don't know, Morgan something. I said nothing. Jason kept talking. Apparently the founder started out in the field, built the whole company from scratch. Claire says the owner still walks job sites personally, knows the crews, knows the systems, all that stuff. My pulse shifted. There weren't many companies matching that description. I asked carefully, "What's Claire's last name?" Jason paused. "Why?" "Just curious." "You don't even know her." "Exactly." His tone sharpened. "Bennett, Claire Bennett, why does that matter?" I looked through the glass wall toward our project administration area. Bennett. I knew that name. Jason was still talking, but I barely heard him. "Tera. I'm here." "So we're good. You're staying away." I glanced at the contract files stacked beside my desk. "Yes, Jason." He relaxed instantly. "Good, thanks." After we hung up, I pulled the newest client file from the stack. Bennett Development Group. I opened it. Project Manager. Claire Bennett. For a few seconds, I just stared. Then I closed the folder, turned my phone face down, and decided not to warn Jason. Thanksgiving arrived, and I did exactly what my family wanted. I stayed away. While I spent the day at home, Jason walked Claire through my parents' front door like the entire evening had been designed to prove something about him. Mom had cleaned the house from top to bottom. Dad had opened the wine he saved for important guests. And for a while, Jason got exactly the Thanksgiving he wanted. Until Claire noticed a family photograph. She pointed toward me. "Who's that?" Jason barely looked. "My sister, Tera." "She's not coming." Jason shrugged. "She works construction. She's probably on some job." Mom could have corrected him. Instead, she added, "Tera never really cared about climbing the ladder." Jason laughed. "She prefers work boots to ambition." Claire didn't laugh. "She's an electrician." Something like that. The conversation moved on, but not for long. When Dad asked Claire about work, her expression immediately brightened. "We just finalized one of our biggest automation contracts." Jason leaned forward, suddenly eager. "The project you've been telling me about." "Yes, with Morgan Industrial Systems." Dad's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. "Morgan." Mom looked across the table. "That's funny. Our last name is Morgan." Jason waved it off. "It's a common name." Claire continued. "The founder is incredible. Started in the field and built the company from practically nothing. What impressed our team is that the owner still walks active sites instead of sitting in an office pretending to understand what the crews deal with." Mom and Dad exchanged a look. Jason didn't notice. He smiled at Claire. "See, that's what I'm talking about, real business leadership." Then Claire reached for her phone. "I'll show you." There was a photo from the contract signing. Jason took another sip of wine. Claire opened Morgan Industrial Systems website and turned the screen toward the table. Silence. Standing beside Bennett Development Group's executives in the photograph was me. Not in steel-toe boots. Not in my work jacket. A tailored suit. My name appeared underneath. Tera Morgan, founder and managing director. Mom grabbed the phone. "That's Tera." Claire looked at her. Then at Jason. Jason's face had gone completely pale. Claire slowly lowered her phone. "You told me your sister was some embarrassing construction worker." Jason opened his mouth. "Claire, I can explain. She owns Morgan Industrial Systems." "Tera never told us." "That wasn't my question." Claire pushed her chair back. Jason reached toward her. "Come on, this is a misunderstanding." But Claire was staring at the man who had excluded his own sister to impress her with a lie. Then she asked the one question Jason clearly wasn't prepared to answer. "What else have you lied to me about?" Claire left before dessert. Jason followed her onto the porch, insisting there had been a misunderstanding. "There isn't," Claire told him. "You were embarrassed by your sister because of the kind of work you thought she did. Finding out she owns the company doesn't make what you said better. Then she got into her car and drove away. Inside, Thanksgiving unraveled. My phone started ringing. Mom. Dad. Jason. I watched each call disappear from my screen without answering. Meanwhile, Dad opened his laptop and searched *Morgan Industrial Systems ***. The deeper he looked, the quieter the room became. Multiple commercial crews. Years of completed industrial projects. Major clients. Photographs of installations with me, standing beside engineers and supervisors in the same work jacket my family had mocked. And on the company leadership page, Tera Morgan, founder and managing director. Dad leaned back. She owns all of this. Jason was staring at his own phone. Then his expression changed. Months earlier, he had asked Claire to introduce him to industrial contractors because he wanted to move from corporate sales into the higher-paying industrial market. Morgan Industrial Systems was exactly the kind of company he had hoped to approach. And now Claire knew what he really thought about the people doing that work. When Jason finally reached her, Claire was direct. My company's contract with Tera has nothing to do with us. The project stays professional. Jason exhaled. Okay, good. I'm not finished. Silence. I need space from you. Claire. You hid your sister because you thought her profession made you look bad. I didn't know that was who you were. The call ended. 6 days after Mom told me there would be no seat for me at Thanksgiving, someone pounded on my front door. I opened it. Mom, Dad, and Jason stood outside. I had just returned from a site inspection, so I was still wearing steel-toe boots and the same kind of work jacket they had considered too embarrassing for Thanksgiving. Mom pushed past the greeting. How could you let us believe you were just an electrician? Dad demanded, why didn't you tell us what that company actually was? Jason looked furious. You knew Claire worked with you, didn't you? For the first time, they weren't looking down at me. They were standing on my doorstep, demanding that I explain how they had managed to underestimate me. Mom started again. Tera, do you understand what happened because you kept this from? My phone rang. I glanced at the screen. Then Jason saw the name too. Claire Bennett. I answered the phone, while all three of them stood in my doorway. Hi, Claire. Jason immediately stepped closer. Claire's voice was calm and professional. Tera, I wanted to apologize for what happened. I had no idea Jason had said those things about you. You don't owe me an apology. I also want to be clear about the Bennett project. Whatever happens between Jason and me is personal. Our contract with Morgan Industrial Systems remains exactly as agreed. That's how I intended to handle it. Good, I'll see you at Monday's project meeting. When the call ended, I put my phone away. Jason stared at me. So you're really working directly with her? I own the company working with her. Mom folded her arms, then explained something to me. How did we not know? That question almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny. Because they genuinely believed the missing information was somehow my fault. I started as an apprentice electrician in my early 20s, I said. I got licensed. I moved into industrial controls. Then I started taking small commercial contracts myself. Dad's expression tightened. I remember you mentioning contracts. Yes, you called it work stuff and changed the subject. He said nothing. I hired my first crew, then another. We expanded into automation. Those jobs became Morgan Industrial Systems. Mom looked down at my work jacket. But you always looked like you were working for somebody. I was working. I gestured toward my clothes. I still inspect installations. I still meet crews. I still solve problems on site. Owning the company didn't make me too important to understand the work that built it. Mom's voice softened. Why didn't you correct us? I tried. The silence that followed was uncomfortable. When I talked about hearing crews, nobody asked questions. When I mentioned expanding operations, Dad called it boring. Jason joked that I was the family electrician. Jason shook his head. You could have told me before Thanksgiving. You knew Claire was connected to your company. I found out after you called to make sure I stayed away. His face hardened. So you just let me humiliate myself? No, Jason. I looked directly at him. You asked me not to come. He stopped talking. I did exactly what you wanted. I stayed away from Thanksgiving. Dad looked toward the floor. Mom finally whispered, we handled this badly. No, you made a decision about how much respect I deserved based on what you thought I earned and how my job looked. We're proud of you, Dad said quickly. Of course we're proud. I shook my head. You don't get to rewrite last week because you found my company website. That ended the conversation. But there was another change they hadn't expected. For years, I had quietly helped my parents when property repairs exceeded their budget. When Jason called with another temporary emergency, I had covered those too. That stopped. Not as punishment, as a boundary. If my success didn't matter when basic respect was required, my money wasn't going to become family property once they discovered how much that success was worth. The $8.4 million Bennett contract continued exactly as planned. Claire never allowed her personal situation to interfere with the project. Her relationship with Jason was different. She ended it. She told him she couldn't build a future with someone who deliberately degraded his own sister just to make himself appear more impressive. That also meant the industrial introductions Jason had hoped Claire would provide disappeared with the relationship. I didn't call anyone to damage his career. I didn't have to. Jason had wanted Thanksgiving to establish him as the successful Morgan sibling. Instead, the woman he was trying to impress discovered that the embarrassing sister he hid from dinner had built the company her own employer trusted with an $8.4 million project. For a while, I kept my parents at a distance. Eventually, we began speaking again, but on different terms. No more jokes about my work. No more expecting me to shrink so Jason could feel taller. And no more automatic financial rescue whenever somebody needed something. I kept wearing my steel-toe boots. I kept putting on that work jacket. And I kept walking my own job sites. Months later, Morgan Industrial Systems successfully completed the first major phase of the Bennett project. The following Thanksgiving, I didn't wait to find out whether somebody had saved me a seat. I spent it with employees, friends, and people who had respected me long before they knew what my company was worth. My family thought my work clothes made me an embarrassment. They eventually learned the clothes were never the embarrassing part. The way they treated the person wearing them was.